Cheekyta, the Tarsier Superhero, by BenP. Chapter 1. The Kingdom of Fili. Once upon a time there was a forest kingdom known as Fili, a beautiful kingdom surrounded by blue water, composed of hundreds of forest islands. It has tropical rainforests, mountains, beaches, coral reefs, diverse range of flora and fauna. All of the forest islands were beautiful. But there was one really very special island known as Bubul. It was blessed with gorgeous beaches, mineral resources, and was covered by tropical forests and vast areas where rice and a variety of exotic fruit grow. And in the island of Bubul, there were many small forest islands too, shaped like hills, scattered by the hundreds throughout Bubul. The grass-covered hills dried up and turned chocolate brown on dry season. Then the whole area transformed into seemingly endless rows of triangular-shaped hills called the Tsuku Hills. There the Tarsarites lived, and down below the Tsuku Hills, where lands were flat, there lived the Toteos from the tribe of Talbot. And far away from Talbot tribes in the mainland, there lived the Raiders. The legend explained the formation of the Tsuku Hills. It was the story of two feuding giants bigger than mountains, who hurled rocks, boulders, and sand at each other. The fighting lasted for many days and exhausted the two giants. In their exhaustion, they fell asleep for days, and when they woke up, forgot about their feud and became friends. But when they left, they forgot to clean up the mess they had made during their battle. The mess dried up and made up Tsuku Hills. Even though the two giants became friends, the god of the mountains called Aragano got very angry because of the mess and the damage done to the forest. The two giants froze up and turned into big rocks shaped like mountains. Over time, the two giants became two big rocky mountains in the kingdom of Fili. Feared that one day the two giants may come back to life again, Aragano stayed in the forest somewhere in the kingdom of Fili to ensure that the two giants cannot escape from their punishment, and thus the two giants remained frozen indefinitely. He was disguised as a tree, a very big golden-brown tree known as the tree of Baliti, the mother of all trees and plants and the source of power. The legend of the tree was known to all in the kingdom of Fili, but no one really saw the tree of Baliti. No one knew where it was. Legend said that only the chosen one can see the tree of Baliti. Many have searched the tree of Baliti, but all of them failed. In the middle of Tsuku Hills, where all the Tarsarites lived, nestled a nice little house called Kubu. Around the Kubu were turnips, eggplants, winged beans, and peanuts, string beans, lima beans, melon, pumpkins, and squash. And still more. There were radish, mustards, tomatoes, onions, garlic, and ginger. All around was sesame lush. The kubu was a native house, traditionally being constructed with bamboo tied together and covered with a thatched roof, using dried leaves from special trees. Kubu was the native house of the Tarsarites from the tribe of Tarsar. And in the kubu there lived Cheekyta, and her sister, Cheekyta, and her parents, Papatar and Mamaser. They were a happy family. But all of them lived in fear that one day their tribes will vanish and that all the Tarsarites will be extinct. Cheekyta was cheeky, happy, and liked playing with her sister in the forest far away from the kubu. They liked climbing on top of the trees, hanging, jumping, and moving around branches like monkeys. They loved to play hide and seek along with Papatar and Mamaser. Cheekyta liked to hide behind the big tree while Papatar helped Cheekyta find her. While Mamaser was in the kubu pretending to be hiding, but she was actually cooking dinner. Cheekyta and Cheekyta climbed on the top of the tree, clung onto the strong branch of the tree, screamed, laughed out loud, jumped, and tried to scare each other, while the branches bent up and down and made some cracking noise and whoops whoops sound. They really loved each other. They were not just sisters, they were best of friends. On top of the tree they felt the window blow cold and saw the beautiful sunset overlooking the Toteos working on the farm down on the Tsuku Hills from the tribe of Talbot. Before dawn, they headed back to Kubu. Though the forest was beautiful, it was still dangerous at night because some wild animals were running around in some parts of the forest. And due to the small size of the tarsorites, they were preyed upon by numerous animal species in the surrounding forests, including cats, birds of prey, large snakes, and small carnivorous wild animals. Being at home before dawn was important to them because they all need to eat dinner together. They believed that eating together helped create a good family atmosphere and build a strong family relationship. Saying grace before and after eating dinner was usual for the family. At dinner, Cheekyta led the grace. "Thank you, Lord, for what we have today. We hope you bless our food again tomorrow. Thank you, Lord. Amen." Then all of them replied, "Amen." Papa Tar was old, but never got tired telling good stories to his children. He made them laugh and happy. He liked doing magic tricks and sing, though he was out of tune most of the times. Papa Tar loved his family so much, reminding his children all the time that the family always comes first, that they must love one another and respect elders. Papa Tar spent good quality times with his family. He believed that when he spent quality time with them, it helps him understand the needs of his family, and they've gotten closer to each other. While Mama Seer loved cooking for her family and gave them proper nutrition the family needed. She also believed that providing her family with the proper nutrition, they will grow healthy and happy. After dinner, they all went to the lounge to hear Papa Tar sing his favorite old song and pretended that the broomstick was his microphone. He then sang, "Born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows, born free to follow your heart, live free and beauty surrounds you, the world still astounds you each time you look at a star." He wouldn't stop until he finished it. He bowed as if he was at the center stage, waited for his audience to applause while Cheekyta and Cheekyta laughed and giggled on one side because Papa Tar sang really loud and out of tune. Nevertheless, still proud of himself as if he was a professional singer, and thought that his performance was par excellence. After Papa Tar, Cheekyta, and Cheekyta showed off their favorite dance moves together, they sang and danced a song composed by Cheekyta. Goes on and on. Chapter 2. Tarsorites and Toteos. The Tarsorites were from the tribe of Tarsor, lived in the forest island called Suku Hills, and have been existing for millions of years. They were very interesting and were the smallest primates in the kingdom of Fili that has large eyes like an owl, big ears, and hairless tails, except for a tuft at the end. They only weigh 2.8 to 5.8 ounces, and at birth they only weigh about 20 to 25 grams, and a tail of 5 to 11 inches long. The fur is woolly and kinky. They have short front legs and long back legs. They have nails on toes, but only the second and the third have claws. Their long hind legs enabled them to leap distances of up to 5 meters between branches. The long fingers and toes of the tarsorites were tipped with pads and have nails to help them grip onto branches and prey, with long curved claws on their second and third digits, which were used for grooming. They need branches for clinging onto. What's interesting with them, they can turn their heads in a full 180 degrees, and young tarsorites make clicking and whistling sounds when they call their mother. They were one of the most amazing creatures in the whole kingdom of Philly. Cheekyta's family was a singing family. They emit many different kinds of vocal calls. When in a romantic mood, Papa Tar and Mama Seer sing a vocal duet, but the same song they use to chase off an intruder who has wandered off into their territory. Dawn was the best time to hear the duet. They were entirely adapted to their forest life. While Torteos were from the tribe of Talbot, they lived in the remote upstream villages below Suku Hills, far away from the mainland where the raiders lived. They were predominantly farmers and depended on forests for their livelihood. They lived independently, grew their own foods, and all their necessities were sourced from the forest. They lived a simple life, but happy and content. They traded goods with other raiders in the mainland. History said that the Torteos rebelled against the raiders. Raiders from the mainland wanted to dominate the tribes of Talbot, where the Torteos lived. The uprising was led by known Torteos superhero called BenP, who used the magical branch as his weapon to defeat the raiders and to avoid conquering their tribe situated in the lower part of Suku Hills. The Torteos won the battle, and after that the raiders made peace with the Torteos and left them in peace for a very long time. The raiders were also from the tribe of Talbot, but living in the mainland away from the Torteos. Some of the raiders were selfish and cruel, particularly to the group of the mountain raiders. They were one of the most feared by the tarsorites, as well as some of the Torteos. The chief of the raiders in the mainland was Govador, also the leader of the mountain raiders. Govador formed the mountain raiders as his private army so that he would be in control of all the islands in the kingdom of Philly and to protect his bad activities. The forest where tarsorite tribes were located was so beautiful. Sunlight was coming through the trees. Sometimes foggy, the lovely earthly smell and coolness around, moss growing on the trunks of the trees, the tiny droplets of water dripping from large leaves, the ferns, water trickling through the little creek, heavenly sounds of different birds singing, the lovely fragrance of wildflowers. It was really beautiful. Some branches of the trees have few dark and brown lines that have followed since movements of the silence. The green leaves covered the branches as if the silence wanted to conceal itself. The island forest was like a lost paradise on earth, filled with fresh, cool air and brightness. Beautiful as it was, but have been destroyed by the mountain raiders. Cruel intentions and selfishness, they attacked the forest over and over, where the tarsorites and Torteos lived. They hunted and shot down many animals in the forest. They cut down trees and sold it on the mainland. They didn't care about the forests. They only cared for money and the pleasure harming animals. Armed and equipped with heavy equipment, big tools, machineries, and powerful weapons, no one could stop them. They were trained to do their jobs, cut trees and hunt live animals. They burnt trees and plants in the forest, shot animals, all just for fun and money. Many plants and animals died, and some parts of the forests became inhabitable because of the mountain raiders. Chapter 3. The Myth. Feared that the mountain raiders will destroy all the forests and their lives will be endangered, and the source of their livelihood will be destroyed, the tarsorites consulted the Gurangs. They were the elders and respected amongst all the tarsorites from the different tribes of Suku Hills. All the Gurangs gathered around, argued, and discussed ways on how to stop the mountain raiders. Everyone shared opinions and ideas, but after considering all, none would they have thought will work, as mountain raiders were so powerful, strong, and heavily armed. One of the Gurangs stood up and said, "We may be able to defeat the mountain raiders if the myth was true." He then continued, "According to the myth, thousands of years ago, the mountain raiders were defeated by a forest keeper." "Who was that?" asked one of the tarsorites. The Gurang continued,
The forest keeper was one who had kept the forest from the mountain raiders for a very long time. He had a magical weapon called the branch, used against them. The branch came from the oldest tree in the kingdom of Fili. It was called the Tree of Baliti.
He went on.
The Tree of Baliti, according to the myth, being the oldest tree, was the mother of all plants and trees in the kingdom of Fili. It has the power to distribute food to all living trees and plants in the forests. The only tree that changes the color of its branches. A big golden brown tree, somewhere in the kingdom of Fili, and from the Tree of Baliti, raised all the trees and plants, and all the trees and plants grew in every forest. Some said the tree was the god of the mountains, and it had the source of power.
The Gurang continued.
Accordingly, the Tree of Baliti was the source of magical weapon called the branch. This branch was unique. It changes color at times, but only the chosen one would be able to see it, so it would be very difficult for us to see the branch unless one of us is the chosen one. The branch has to split into two, then tap it 3 times to release the power, but only the chosen one can do it. But it was just a myth. Could be true or not,
Gurang said. One of the Tarsarites, who was listening to Gurang's story, shouted loud and said, "Let's find it then!"
"Yes, let's go! Let's find it!"
The crowd shouted eagerly. Desperate to solve their problem, the search for the branch started. Everyone was searching for the Tree of Baliti. It took them years before they finally found the location of the Tree of Baliti. A small group of the Tarsarites, including one Gurang, found the Tree of Baliti near the Talbot tribe in the Tusuku Hills. It was very large, very tall, scary-looking, very different amongst all other trees. It was shining brown, almost like gold. As the group was getting closer to the Tree of Baliti, they saw a young Toteo from the tribe of Talbot playing around the Tree of Baliti. One Tarsarite asked the young Toteo, "What's your name?" The young Toteo replied, "I am BenP, from the tribe of Talbot." He seemed cheeky, but polite, nice-looking, wore a green hat and clothes, a brown pair of shoes and gloves, and the group started looking for the magical branch. They spent hours and hours, going round and round, climbing up and down the tree, but no one can see it. BenP was so curious and asked them, "What were you looking for?" One Tarsarite replied and said, "We were looking for the branch that changes color at times." BenP replied, "Oh, my favorite branch! They're at the top." The Tarsarites were staggered and looked up, but they can't see it. "Where is it?" "There!" BenP pointed to the branch. "Can you come up and show it to us?" They went up and BenP guided them. They tried cutting the branch, but it seemed impossible. It was so hard that they couldn't break it from the tree. BenP saw them struggling. He came closer and grasped the branch, tried to break it, but still nothing happened. Playful BenP jumped on the branch cracked and broke. And then BenP fell from a tree holding the broken branch, and then the Tarsarites immediately went to BenP to rescue him. But BenP didn't mind at all falling from the tree as if nothing had happened. "Here you go," grasped BenP. He gave them the broken branch. The Tarsarites were very thankful to BenP. They've managed to split it into 2 pieces, and then everyone tried to tap the 2 sticks 3 times, hoping the power will release. But nothing happened. No one was successful, even the Gurang. But he tried it himself many times, but nothing happened. They were all very disappointed and desperate, didn't know what to do. So they gave up and all agreed that it was just a myth. But others said they were not the chosen one. BenP was watching curiously, and out of curiosity he asked, "What were you doing with the sticks? This is supposed to give us the power to fight against the mountain raiders. But it doesn't seem to be working," Tarsarites replied. "I hate the mountain raiders. They killed my pet in the forest, and I'd like to stop them from killing animals and destroying the forests," he continued. "Can I have a go, please?" The group laughed and ignored him, but the Gurang said, "Well, since he was the one who showed us the branch, then let him try it. He could be the chosen one." He then told BenP, "If it works, it will give you power, and that power will be used to keep the forest safe from anyone who will destroy it. And then you will become the forest keeper." Not so sure and curious, he said, "Okay." The gurang handed the 2 sticks and gave it to him. He looked at it curiously and then tapped the 2 sticks 3 times. And suddenly, after the 3rd tap, an explosion, out of the blue, for a few seconds, BenP disappeared. Everyone was dumbfounded and scared for a moment. When the explosion was gone and the smoke faded out, a superhero appeared holding the branch glowing in different colors. Then they realized that the myth was real, and the branch was meant for BenP, the young Torteo from the tribe of Talbot. He then tapped the branch again 3 times. The same thing happened. But when the smoke faded out, it was the young BenP. He went back to his normal appearance. The Tarsarites then concluded that BenP was the chosen one. From there on, BenP protected all the forests, fought bravely with the mountain raiders, fearlessly from forest to forest, kept it safe, and defended all the living creatures in the whole island of Bubol. He was then called the Forest Keeper, defender of the forests. Defeated and scared, the mountain raiders stopped coming into the forest for many years. BenP became known in the kingdom of Fili as the Forest Keeper, armed with the magical branch. Since then, the forests have come back to life. The trees nurtured, animals run free, and the Tarsarites lived in peace, so as the Torteos from the tribe of Talbot. After many years of peace in the kingdom of Fili, BenP rested and became old. One day he just vanished. No one knew where he was. He became a legend. Some said that he died and was buried beside the tree of Baliti with his branch. Some believed that his spirit was still around, keeping the forest safe. Some said he was still alive, but none can tell that really happened to him. BenP remained a legend and myth. But peace didn't last forever. Knowing that BenP was no longer around, a new breed of mountain raiders showed up, organized, trained, and armed with more sophisticated and powerful weapons, stronger than the old mountain raiders. They raided the forests again and again, any time they wanted. They camped in the forest, got drunk, hunted, and shot every animal they saw in the forests for fun. Same old mountain raiders. They cut trees, regardless, big or small, it didn't matter. Logs and captured animals were brought to the mainland, sold to the rich raiders as instructed by their leader, the old Govardor. They used the money to gain more power so he can stay in power and control everyone in the kingdom of Fili. Chapter 4. Horrible Disaster. It was a cloudy day, a bit dark. The family were outside the kubu. Papatar and Mamasir were picking up some fruits in the garden while Cheekyta was behind a big tree watching, and Cheekyta, on top of the big tree, clung onto the branch watching them and called Cheekyta. "Come on, Cheekyta, come up! I've got to show you something." And all of a sudden, heavy rain poured, a flash flood came, and the wind blew. Strong and fast, Cheekyta clung onto the branch with all her strength. In the few seconds, floods everywhere. Water was approaching very fast, as huge as the mountain. The water rose over shoulder, wind struck, and the kubu wrecked everything. Every bit of it flew everywhere, while floodwater was pouring down fast towards the tribe of Talbot. Frightened and horrified, Cheekyta screamed out loud, "Papa! Mama! Help me! Please help me!" As she looked down, she saw Cheekyta stroked by tree wreckage, helpless, badly hurt. Unable to move, horrified, crying, screamed, "Papa! Papa!" Papatar and Mamasir rushed over to Cheekyta despite the water being deep over their shoulders. "We're coming! We're coming!" As soon as they got closer to Cheekyta, another big tree was uprooted, lurched, and swayed away. As the ground fell away, every piece were bobbed upside down and spinning in the air. The two were hit by the big tree, unconscious, drowned before they reached Cheekyta, and they were all swept away together with Cheekyta in the fast-flowing turbulence. Poor Cheekyta, shaking and horrified, still clung onto the tree, cried and cried, shouting, "Papa, Papa, Mama, Cheekyta!" Unable to move or do anything as the wind continued blowing strong and heavy rain continued pouring. Many of the Tarsarites, as well as Torteos, had nowhere to run. Some died, some were badly hurt, and some went missing, including Cheekyta. After the horrifying event, Cheekyta stood on the ground where their kubu was no more. Nothing survived. Tears in her eyes, nowhere to go, No one to talk to. Sad and scared, she climbed up the big tree and stayed there for many hours, cried and cried a lot. Hundreds of Tarsarites and Tauteos have been lost. Most tribes have been destroyed, with more missing as floodwaters wiped out almost the entire Talbot tribes. Due to landslide and heavy downpour battered the tribes. It was so horrifying and a very, very sad event that Cheekyta will never forget. Survivors partly blamed the mountain raiders because of cutting more trees in the forest contributed more to heavy flood and landslide. Most parts of Tuku Hills, natural forests have been destroyed. Plants and animals, along with other living creatures, have been affected, more particularly the tribes of Tarsar and Talbot, as well as some parts of the mainland where raiders lived. The event and loss of forests have led to the extinction of thousands of species and caused desertification. They believe that if mountain raiders did not cut most of the trees, the roots of the trees dug deep into the ground would penetrate several layers and will hold together, and these layers will prevent the formation of dust and thus maintain the topsoil intact. In the absence of the trees, dust was formed, and heavy rainfall caused a landslide and flood. When mountain raiders cleared tropical rainforests, the high sunlight damaged the topsoil, thus, with every rainfall, the availability of fertile land decreased. The same effect was caused by heavy winds and storms. The deforested areas became desert-like that made the forest take longer to regenerate itself, and most land were not suited for agriculture for quite some time. That caused a shortage of food and made their lives very difficult. Forests were their source of food and plants. It helped them in many ways. All of them, including all animals, inhaled oxygen and exhaled carbon dioxide. Plants took up the carbon dioxide, and in return, they released oxygen. This exchange was very important. Forests, in particular, acted as a huge carbon dioxide sink. If there were not enough trees to absorb carbon dioxide, its accumulation would make their environment poisonous, putting their lives in danger at all times. Carbon dioxide contributed to global warming. Angry and disappointed, one of the Tarsarites shouted, "We must stop the mountain raiders! We must do something!" "Yeah!" the crowd replied while they were looking for missing families, relatives, and friends. You can feel and see on their faces the mixed reaction of rage, sadness, and desperation. Some were just crying in one corner, some shouting, hoping that their families could hear them. The green forest turned into a place of disaster. Chapter 5. The Magical Branch. Cheekyta was all alone, living by herself after the disaster. She was so lonely and scared, but she's strong and never gave up, hoping that one day she will see her sister Cheekyta again. Life continued with Cheekyta. Many days, months, and years passed by. She learned to live a normal life. Despite sadness, she can still laugh and find love in her heart. She smiled whenever she remembered her family, the good old days, her Papa Tar singing out of tune, his stories and magic tricks. Her Mama Seer cooked a lovely dinner, comforted her when she's lonely, and her sister Cheekyta she missed most. She cried, then laughed whenever she remembered. She danced the cheeky move, and when they played on top of the trees, screamed and laughed out loud with joy. One day, Cheekyta played all alone in the forest. She climbed on top of the big tree, laughed, screamed, like they used to do with her sister Cheekyta. Suddenly, some raiders showed up, armed with different weapons. Also with them were big tools and heavy machinery for cutting trees. Feared to be seen by the raiders, she stayed on the tree, clung onto the branch, and hid silently. Raiders searched for the trees to cut and hunt animals.
"Hey, this one is big! Let's take it down!"
one of the raiders shouted. Not knowing that Cheekyta was on the top of the tree, hiding quietly, she heard the chainsaw roaring loud, deep into the tree, slowly moving back and forth until the tree fell down and all its branches where Cheekyta was hiding. She was crushed, in pain, but stayed still and tried to hide within thick leaves of the tree. Unnoticed by the raiders, the big log rolled down into the vehicle, ready for transport to mainland, while some branches were left behind. In a few minutes the raiders were gone, but Cheekyta was still under the big branch. In pain, tried to get out, but she couldn't move. It was already dark, and the pain got so intense she could hardly breathe and move. She thought that it would be her end, that she would be going to die. She whispered, "Papa, Mama," slowly, and got weaker and weaker. But all of a sudden she said to herself, "No, I don't want to die. I want to see my sister Jolita." And that gave her strength to hold on. She had a strong feeling that Jolita is alive, somewhere. Cheekyta looked away as a feeling of despair worked its way into the mind. The memories of that horrible event in her life flashed to the front of the mind, and despite its best effort, she couldn't shut them out. The flood, the strong wind, the desperate shouts of Jolita, Papatar, and Mamasir swept away by a fast-flowing flood. She felt alone again, sad and weak. She cried and cried. Exhaustedly, she collapsed, unconscious. While unconscious, an old man with a crutch, filthy long white hair, a long beard, wearing a green hat and a brown pouch belted at his waist, showed up and came closer to Cheekyta. He put his crutch under the fallen branch, lifted and freed Cheekyta away from the branch. A few hours later, Cheekyta woke up. In front of her was an old man that gave her water to drink. "Who are you?" asked Cheekyta. The old man did not reply, instead told her to drink a bit more. Cheekyta continued, "Thank you, old man. If you didn't come, I would probably be dead by now." Then the old man asked, "So what happened to you?" Cheekyta replied, "The mountain raiders cut the tree where I was playing. Lucky they didn't see me. I was so frightened and helpless. They were big, strong, and armed with different weapons. I wish I could stop them, but I was so scared." The old man replied, "There is a way to stop them. You have to fight them." "But how could I fight them? It's so impossible," Cheekyta replied. "I can give you a magical weapon to stop them. Will you stop them and keep the forest safe?" The old man asked. "Yes, but where will you get the weapon?" "You look very old and weak," Cheekyta replied. The old man broke his crutch in two and gave both to her. Cheekyta looked doubtful and curious and tried to figure out what the sticks were for. The old man said, "Those sticks are called branch, the weapon feared by mountain raiders." He then continued, "The branch is a magical weapon used by the forest keeper to make the forest safe from anyone who will destroy it and harm any living creatures. It changes in different types of weapons when needed, as well as its colors and strikes like lightning. Anyone hit by the branch will become unconscious for a few hours. It is very painful and leaves a mark and bruise for days. That's why the mountain raiders were so scared with the forest keeper." Thrilled and excited, she asked, "How do I use it then?" "You have to tap the two branches together 3 times. After that, an explosion will come out. You will be changed to superhero. You will become strong, and the branch becomes your magical weapon," gasped the old man. So curious and excited, she did tap the 2 sticks 3 times, and all of a sudden, an explosion out of the blue, like a small bomb, exploded in the air. Cheekyta for a second was gone, and then reappeared as a superhero when the smoke faded. She became different, taller, and stronger. Her clothes were beautiful, red and blue with sun and stars, her head covered with white and yellow bandana. The branch was red and black, glowing yellow around it, glazing, sparkling, changing colors when she moved it. "Wow!" Cheekyta got really excited. "It's unbelievable." As she checked around the magical branch, the old man disappeared. Old man, where are you?" gasped Cheekyta. The old man vanished, nowhere to be found. She then tapped the branches again 3 times, then an explosion came out again, exactly as before. After that she reappeared, returned to her normal appearance. She stayed a little while, looked around, and tried to find the old man, but still nothing. On the way back home, she remembered her father telling her a story about the legend of BenP, the forest keeper. She then thought that the old man could be BenP, the forest keeper, and handed his power to her. "Whoa! I have BenP's power?" she shouted excitedly. "Get ready, mountain raiders. Here comes the cheeky move." Chapter 6. The Mountain Raiders. It was a clear and sunny day in the forest. Cheekyta walked in the forest. Far from a distance, she heard some voices laughing loud. Some noises from heavy machinery. She can feel the vibrations from the ground. Some trees were shaking, while all animals ran wild, bewildered. She hid behind the big tree, at a bit of a distance where she heard the voices. She looked at where the voices came from, and there she saw the mountain raiders. Frightened and not knowing what to do, she stood behind the big tree to hide herself from the raiders, holding her branch tightly. Suddenly she heard a loud voice.
"Hey, come on! There's a nice big tree in there. Let's go cut it."
Not knowing that she was behind that tree, scared, and she stood still.
"Yeah, that's big one. Come on, let's do it."
The mountain raiders wore a different color of uniforms, and they have different types of weapons. The green raider holding a chainsaw, the orange raider with a bow and arrow, the blue raider with big axes, and the red raider held a long big sword. The raiders came closer to the tree where Cheekyta was hiding. The blue raider started his chainsaw. It was loud, roaring, while the other raiders were watching, ready to help. Cheekyta was so scared, still didn't know what to do. As the green raider was ready to cut the tree, the raider with a battle axe walked around the tree first. To his surprise, he saw Cheekyta and excitedly shouted,
"Ah! Look what we've got here! A funny little tarserite!"
Scared, Cheekyta ran out, but was blocked by other raiders. The 4 mountain raiders surrounded her.
"You're in trouble, little tarserite. We will put you in a cage and sell,"
the blue raiders said.
"No, let me just use her as my target practice,"
said the other raider with a bow and arrow. Cheekyta was holding tight to her branches and said in a trembled voice, "You better let me go and stop cutting trees in the forest, or all of you will be in trouble."
"Ha ha 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 ha!"
The 4 mountain raiders laughed loud.
"Get that little tarserite,"
the green mountain raider shouted, with his saw machine roaring loud. Before they came closer, Cheekyta tapped the 2 branches 3 times, and an explosion came out. She was gone for a second, and when the explosion stopped, the smoke faded. She reappeared as a superhero with her magical branch in different colors. "Okay, bad raiders, try me," Cheekyta shouted loud, ready for action. Surprised and shocked, raiders still managed to organize themselves ready for the fight. The red raider moved forward with an axe, attacked Cheekyta, but she managed to avoid it and had hit him on the back with her branch. The fight was so intense, weapons flying in all directions so fast. The only sound heard was the metallic clanging of the branch clashed with raiders' weapons. One wrong move by Cheekyta could bring her close to her death. No sign of tiredness. All were trained to fight, but Cheekyta moved so fast like lightning, guided by her magical branch, strong and powerful. They cannot hit her. Such complex moves, with precise angles and cuts, she defeated them one by one. It was terrifying when raiders attacked all at the same time. The red raider fell on the ground, followed by the green and blue raiders, as they were all hit many times on arms, body, and knees. The orange raider was the last raider standing, using his bow and arrow, and shot her. But she stopped the arrow and split it with her magical branch and turned it into a big sword. She hit back, hit him hard on the body until he fell on the ground as well. All the raiders were on the ground, unconscious. When the raiders came back to their senses, they all ran fast as a zebra does. Cheekyta laughed and jumped up and down, waving her magical branch. "Don't you ever come here again, or you will be in trouble, little raiders," Cheekyta shouted victoriously. Armed with her magical branch, Cheekyta fought fearlessly with the mountain raiders, from forest to forest, mountain to mountain, everywhere on the island of Bubble. The mountain raiders have been defeated again and again, and they stopped showing in the forest. Chapter 7 Happy Ending. Feared with the forest keeper, they never came back into the forest. The forest was safe again. Everyone lived happily. The tribe of Talbot increased the source of livelihoods. The Tarsarites lived in peace, and all the animals ran free. The trees, plants, flowers grew and bloomed. Cheekyta was known as the forest keeper, and she kept the forest safe. She was happy, but still searching for her sister Jolita. She knew that one day they will meet again, and will dance and sing the cheeky, cheeky move together. Cheekyta met Aragon, the leader in one of the tribes of Tsuku Hills. They got married and were blessed with a healthy baby called Shezdar. They lived happily ever after. The end.